So please give a warm welcome to Stephanie Breedlove.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I am really excited to be here with you today. This is an audience of my people. I do a lot of speaking, and when I was asked to prepare a formal founder story, I thought to myself, this is going to be a cinch. I get to talk about my journey, and I love to tell stories. It was anything but. As I started the outline, all of a sudden things were pouring out of me at record pace, and everything seemed equally important. Before you knew it, my outline had become a workshop, not a 30-minute talk. And although telling my story, actually I do think is valuable, because according to a recent study done by the Kauffman Foundation, one of the top 3 reasons that women don't start or take the steps to scale businesses is lack of female role models. I wanted to do more in these 30 minutes than give inspiration. So I'm hoping to also leave you with some aspiration that you can incorporate into your goals, into your confidence, and into the size of your accomplishments. So I'm going to break my messages today into 3 segments. First, I'm going to give you a really brief education of the entrepreneurial landscape, because knowledge is power, because it will actually give you some context when I start to share my journey, and because knowing where we've come from will help shape smart progress. Second, I'm going to share some of the core events of my journey. And third, and most importantly, I'd like to share some of the most valuable lessons that I've learned. And this is where I could go on all day, so I've had to select some of my favorites. So let's get educated on the entrepreneurial landscape. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to blow a few socks off with the information that I'm about to share. As you all know, entrepreneurship is essential to our rising standard of living and to economic growth. We are the folks who bring new products and services to the marketplace. We are the creators of new wealth and new jobs. And what most people don't know is that entrepreneurship has been shrinking for the last 30 years. What does that mean? The percentage of adults who choose to start new businesses has been shrinking. And to layer on a little bit more bad news, the number of transformational entrepreneurs is also shrinking. What's a transformational entrepreneur? Someone who starts a business with aspirations for growth rather than for personal employment. Now, 2015 saw an increase. That's the last time we have really good data. But 1 year does not reverse a trend, and time will tell. And economists are predicting that U.S. growth is going to fall from 3%, where it's been for the last 100 years, to 2%, unless we can boost some untapped resources. And many experts believe that women entrepreneurs is a key untapped resource. The evolution of women in entrepreneurship is poised for pivotal accomplishment if we can seize the opportunity. Women-owned businesses have grown from 26% to 36% in the last 20 years. This is significant, and it should be celebrated. But there is much work to be done. In 1997, when we began to capture data and actually study entrepreneurship for the first time, women started 43.7% of new businesses in that year. In 2015, women started 36.8% of new businesses. Women currently employ only 6.2% of our workforce, and we contribute less than 4% of total U.S. revenue. Only 11% of our firms have employees. Only 2% of our firms cross the $1 million mark per year. Firms owned by men are 3.5 times more likely to cross the $1 million mark. So given that the entrepreneurial landscape is hungry for more growth-oriented businesses, it's actually easy to see the opportunity, even with all the current barriers that plague our landscape. The glass truly is half full if we choose to see it that way. And although there is much work to be done, and obstacles will not be overcome overnight, a wave of new efforts has hit the landscape in the past few years to help foster change. Organizations that I think you all may know about, such as Goldman Sachs, Dell, Ernst & Young, Babson College, the Kauffman Foundation, women-focused angel and venture funding companies are just a few examples that our brightest and most influential are engaged in efforts that they see as smart business. But for me personally, I believe that we individually play the most significant role. Change does indeed occur, one conversation, one action at a time. The obstacles that create the barriers and that stop you from going everywhere you are meant to go, they're not going anywhere. This is the nature of business. The very best way to minimize them is to build businesses of value and scale and change those statistics. Now, I'm a real believer in the value of broad foundational knowledge. So I hope that the few facts that I've shared this afternoon are going to spur you to continue your learning about the landscape that you work in. So I'd like to shift gears for a moment and spend a few minutes storytelling and share a little bit about my background and my journey. If I can be a part of changing the statistics with such an early start in the evolution, so can you. I have a finance degree and an MBA, which was somewhat uncommon in the mid-1980s. I got married at 22, which is also somewhat uncommon. When I finished graduate school in 1988, I went to work for Accenture, which was Anderson Consulting at the time, and I spent 6 valuable years building a really wonderful skill set in corporate America. And I actually thought maybe this was my calling. Maybe this was the difference I was meant to make, forging a long-term career in a male-dominated field. And here's a little tiny example of what the times looked like. I have 2 sons. They're 16 months apart. And in 1991, I was 3 years into my career and pregnant with my first son. Both of my children were born while I was at Accenture. Well, at the time in the Denver office where I worked, there was one woman who had returned to work after having children, and she was a partner. All other women had terminated their careers upon having children. So at the time, there was not a maternity policy, at least in the Denver office. I had to craft and negotiate my own maternity policy. Positive was a part of breaking new ground for the women behind me and for the firm. And 2 new desires were emerging at this time in my life, and they began to dominate the shape of my decisions. First, upon the birth of our first son, my husband and I realized, we almost kind of stumbled upon the fact that we actually shared a New Age outlook. We had a desire, both of us, to pursue both our best as professionals and as parents. So what does this mean? Because it meant something different for each of us. For me, logically, it meant that I wanted to continue to pursue a career and navigate the barriers of trying to find a balanced and integrated life. But for my husband, equally as important and not talked about enough, he desired to be an equal parent without sacrificing his career. Truly New Age in 1991. And second, in this quest to cultivate our best, we began to believe with some certainty that our best wasn't in corporate America. We happened to kind of be cut from the same cloth, and we didn't see best in the years to come in where we were. But where? Possibly entrepreneurship. You see, we had this idea that we couldn't get out of our heads, and it was born out of a personal need, which was kind of odd in 1991 for 2 folks with advanced degrees and thriving corporate careers. it was also somewhat odd for the times period. Because you see, in 1991, the word entrepreneurship wasn't even common. It wasn't trendy, it wasn't sexy, it wasn't even really known. The advancement of technology had not yet enabled the swift growth and the economies of scale for the startup. So in 1991, entrepreneurs were savants like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. The rest were home-based businesses and local mom and pops. And we didn't seem to care. I truly seemed to feel called, as if entrepreneurship, whatever that really meant, was what I was meant for. And we'd hired a nanny on this journey to be our third parent. And we desired to pay her professionally, legally, with benefits. And we had this belief that in doing this, it would cultivate a better care relationship and hopefully a longer relationship and a positive outcome for our loved ones, for our 2 children. So here's the idea. What if women were going to return to their careers with more regularity once they had children and have nannies in their home? What if, with medical advancements, the elderly were going to be able to age at home? What if this in-home care industry really was emerging and our idea could be at the forefront? And our idea was to deliver payroll, tax, and legal consultation services to families who had full-time in-home care. It sounds like we were passionate, confident, and ready to go. Nope. We took a little tiny, low-risk hop. We built a test for 2 years. We built an MVP in today's terminology, and we offered our services in 2 states, where we lived and where we had family. And with very little marketing efforts, we let this thing fly. And actually, being the financially responsible people we are, we didn't quit our jobs, neither of us. And this wasn't as hard as it sounds. When you have 2 babies and the nearest relative is 1,000 miles away, your life is centered in and around the home, and it really wasn't very difficult. Until it wasn't. After 2 years, it began to kill us. The rubber had hit the road, and everything in my life was out of balance and deserved better. My family, my corporate career, my new budding group of clients. So we decided that we had enough data after 2 years, and experience and revenue, that we thought we could scale this company nationally. It was time. So after a lot of angst and soul searching and digging deep, the decision was made. I was going to take this nanny tax company national. This is where there's visions of bright light showing you the path and a chariot that carries you off to success. Not, right? So what happened? Here's the part of the story that has become really fun to tell all these years later. So let me give you a vivid visual. In 1995, I took the leap into full-time entrepreneurship, I think in one of the most difficult ways. As the first full-time co-founder of a self-funded bootstrap endeavor that I thought I was going to grow to a national level. Without outside investment, with 2 babies, a very financially demanding life, and 1 salary to support us, my husband's. The funding ecosystem was not nearly as robust and organized as it is today. And to be honest, we weren't connected. It's an important point to note right here that our families also were not interested in investing. So, with no outside funding, unable to qualify for a commercial loan, by the way, and no family money, we had one option: self-fund. So self-fund, we did. And we put bootstrapping strategies to work, i.e., we did every single thing we could ourselves in order to minimize costs to extend that runway. We had $40,000 in savings, which in today's dollars is probably about $65,000, and we had my husband's salary. Bill was the director of finance and M&A work for Coors. So total transparency, he had a great job, and it was nowhere near enough. We mailed the mortgage payment a lot before the money was in the bank. And thank goodness we were writing checks and using snail mail. I forewent a paycheck for 2.5 years in order to have as much as we could for growth and for expenditures. I actually used to sit in front of the financials by myself and vacillate between two extremes. Who am I kidding? I can't do this. This is ridiculous. This is irresponsible. And then the other side of, I actually do think that I'm going to be at my best here, and this is kind of fun, and we're almost there. I can do this. These were all in moments. There were moments when I had to take a step back, and I had to think broadly and realize that everything worth really doing is also really, really hard. And that nothing is insurmountable. There is some form of a solution for almost every barrier. So let's go on to the next part of the story. For 2.5 years, I got up every single morning, I got dressed for work, I had breakfast with my sons, I handed them off to the nanny when she came through the door, and I commuted to my basement office. I also had 2 very long years of hardcore travel to build business development relationships. And I have to admit, during this time, I had a lot of guilt about being away from my children. I look back on it now because hindsight is 20/20, and I realize that more importantly, it was a phenomenal opportunity for my husband to build an amazing bond with his children as an equal parent. And women, you know, we sometimes get in the way. It was indeed bring you to your knees work, and it was one of the happiest times in my life. I was indeed developing and exercising my best talents as an entrepreneur. And I can say now that there was immense power in being without a paycheck. I didn't tell anyone for years how long I went without a paycheck. I was kind of faking it till I was making it. Now I tell everyone, and I wear it like a badge of honor. Well, we turned the corner in year 3 with scale and profitability beginning to gain some traction, and the weight of the world felt like it had been lifted off of my shoulders. My husband joined as a much-needed co-founder with power at the top, and we moved into an office and started to build a team. The first office was 700 square feet that reeked of mold from the air conditioner all day long. We had no running water. We cleaned the coffee pot in the bathroom. And one of our employees shared her desk and her workspace with the supply closet. And it was euphoria. This milestone was not lost on me. And then we began to look less like a fledgling startup and the beginning of a company that scales. A company with purpose and strategy and structure and process. We learned to grow from profitability, and here's how the journey went by the numbers. In that 3rd year, which enabled scale, we had about $300,000 in revenue. Around the 5.5 to 6 year mark, we finally did cross that $1 million mark. The rest of the story looks like what you read about in Inc. magazine. Sure, there were tough decisions and there were crossroads, but we were on our way. We experienced a compounded annual growth rate of just under 20% for the duration of our tenure, never having a flat or a negative growth year. Our team of 4 quickly grew to 15 and then 30 and then started to move on to 50. Our clients went from a few hundred to 1,000 active clients to 5,000 active clients to 12,000 active clients at the time of our exit. Now, about the $10 million mark, that introduced a new level of scale, and we could feel it. We could almost see it. The development of an executive team, possible large-scale diversification, discussions around maybe private equity partnership, maybe even an acquisition, big nexts. We had a marketing relationship with Care.com, and from this, discussions began around a more serious relationship, and it resulted in an acquisition. We actually had a couple of what I call tire kickers prior to this, and we did not pursue conversations. We were confident in our leadership and our growth and where we were going. But Care.com was different. They checked all the boxes at the top of our list. What was at the top of our list? If we could have the perfect acquisition, we would sell our company to a strategic buyer because our offering as is would be of high value and the potential synergies would bring higher consideration. 2, extreme alignment of vision and strategy. Largely seeing the world through the same lens is pivotally important for the continued success. And 3rd, and I really should have put this first because I think it was the most important to me, was for the opportunity for the company and the management team that we had developed to be able to achieve far more than a couple of individual siloed co-founders could deliver on their own. The real power of partnership for the company and the team. And it was a fit. And my husband and I stayed for 2 years, and we helped complete an effective integration and a successful IPO. The company has actually doubled in less than 3 years since our exit. And that bring you to your knees work has truly brought that entrepreneurial glory to us. We are very fortunate. And this brings me to part 3, a discussion of the most valuable lessons that I've learned. And one thing that I know is that entrepreneurship, with its Jill of all trades demands, gives you numerous lessons. This is guaranteed. So I have selected some of my favorites. Number 1, create a core differentiator for your business by setting aside the traditional ways of looking at the marketplace. Set aside the standard problem-solution method and ask yourself questions like, what does your client perceive when they are buying your product? How is your service going to integrate into the life behaviors and the day-to-day operations of your client? You do touch them in that way no matter how simple your product or service. Clayton Christensen, who's the author of The Innovator's Dilemma and a professor at Harvard Business School, he teaches that framing the questions in this fashion is a much more powerful way to go about business than the traditional problem-solving way of looking at delivering a product. We became believers in this strategy and we went for it with fervor. We were not delivering payroll and tax services. These were commodities. Payroll and tax remittance was a subset of what we were offering. Our mission became to enhance the quality and the longevity of the household employment relationship and to provide peace of mind by doing the right thing. If we delivered this successfully, the results would be more professional, satisfying, higher quality care for loved ones, and we would be perceived as critical to that success. And it worked. Number 2, to add on to number 1, maximize this differentiator by incorporating your unique talents into your product and its delivery. Experts regularly state that entrepreneurs maximize a business idea when we incorporate our authentic talents and values into the core of our businesses and weave it into the fabric of our efforts. They are often subtle, slightly different ways of seeing or doing, and they make all the difference. They really do. My belief in the value and power of quality education, meaningful communication, and high-touch service is so strong that it became a cornerstone of our execution strategies. I think there's a teacher in me somewhere. So, how can these intangible, kind of soft, you're thinking, nice to offer features be profitable strategies with strong ROI, particularly in a financially oriented, deliverable-driven business? I saw the world just a little bit differently. And in this difference, I thought it just might be the key to everything. Payroll tax and labor law is very poorly understood, but critical to an in-home employment relationship. And understanding them could make or break the quality and the longevity of that relationship. I felt if we offered unlimited expert consultation as a standard service offering to increase the knowledge of this complex world, then we might actually increase the quality of the in-home care relationship, lengthen the need for our service. And that's a lot to put on a consultation. This strategy actually applied to our sales team as well. If a prospective client wanted 90 minutes to understand this complex world, we gave them that in hopes that it would help them make a good decision and the right decision. Knowledge is power. What were the results? While our competitors were offering gifts and discounts and running big ad campaigns and requiring sign-up before any kind of a consultation, we were putting our money and our energy behind being there. It actually took years for this simple strategy to show its power, and the results were staggering, and here they are. More than 50% of our sales consultations result in a client. Client lifetime is double that of any of the competitors. An average of 25 to 30% of new clients come from word of mouth, the cheapest marketing in the world, and an unheard of net promoter score in the high 80s. Number 3, the real secret sauce. The secret sauce is to deliver state-of-the-art, ease of use, high-value tech, and quality of product, service, and touch. Every company is a tech company. And every tech company is a service company at some level. Those that can master both with efficiency will exceed market expectations and will garner the big wins. We learned this through a very, very risky endeavor, and it was a big lesson. We had given our heart and soul to quality, high-touch, unparalleled deliverables and service, as you can tell from my story. And our tech was average at best, I'll be honest. But in our industry, our cohorts, accountants, banks, other payroll companies, we actually looked kind of good in this bubble. I'm thinking tech and service in these industries might be my next business. So here's how the lesson was learned. As a volume-based business, we quickly reached a point in which we had maxed our off-the-shelf software and our custom software that rounded out our platforms. We were at about $5 million in revenue at this time. The logical investment, given our size, would have been to have put about $500,000 into upgrading our platforms to take us a few more years down the road. We opted for door number 2. If, and a big if, we could actually provide a wow and valuable tech experience, the truly what you need, when you need it, with a flow and a format that you can actually understand, which is a big nugget in our industry, and to do the same internally for our team, would this create the growth and the value and the efficiency that we sought? Might it even enhance service, eliminating non-value-add consultations? So we invested $2 million, a big nugget for a $5 million company. And we even went for disrupting payroll. And I'm going to brag for a moment. We can process payroll in minutes, what it takes the big boys, ADP and Paychex, to do in hours. So, why isn't everyone doing this? Because it takes extreme range of talent. And it also takes long-term, almost insurmountable commitment. But it produces the biggest wins, and it's the right way to grow a company. Fourth, when you graduate from startup, when all your focus is on bringing your product to the market into scale, when you're thinking more about execution and growing efficiently and profitably, my experience is that how you view thinking big and how you define working more on your business rather than in your business matters for the trajectory of the growth of your business at epic proportions. And here's one of my best examples. I just bragged a moment ago, well, now I'm going to out some of the downside. So one day, early on in the business, I received a phone call from a competitor who at the time was larger than we were. Highly unusual. Stephanie, she said, I've been paying attention to you all, and I like what I see. You work hard and you offer a quality service. I bet you have annual revenue about $500,000. And we're so impressed that we'd like to open a dialogue to acquire your company. She was spot on. Her facts were accurate. And never in a million years would I have imagined this conversation at this time in the business. This was so far from the goals and the strategies and our daily reality. I believed that we were thinking big in order to maximize scale at that early stage. But this conversation invoked a what the bleep moment. So I realized that I didn't think we were acquisition material. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks, a few bricks I think I still carry with me to remind me of how important it is to think big. She was afraid of our growth and our momentum. She was willing to entertain a very risky move to take us out. Wow. She saw it, and we didn't. Our heads were down. Her image of us was not the image that we had of ourselves. It was a wake-up call. It was thought-provoking. It was a confidence boost, and it really was a gift. If opportunity was there, grand-scale opportunity, why weren't we thinking about it? And I don't mean 10,000 active clients someday. I mean 100,000 active clients someday. It wasn't going to be around the corner, but it would never be around the corner if we didn't change the way we were thinking. And fifth, be on a constant mission to grow your personal business skills and close your skill gap. I'm on a current mission in my career right now to pay it forward to female entrepreneurs. So I have a lot of conversations with women in business. And here's a very typical quote that unfortunately I hear way too often. My business is gaining traction and potential interest from investors, but I don't know how we're going to raise this money successfully. I prefer to leave every financial conversation to other experts. I'm just not good at that side of the business. Here's the reality. We are all rock stars at a very few number of things. We are average at a few more. And we have a few that are really hard for us. And each of those things, they comprise the components of our businesses. As a founder, it is your job, and I hope your talent, to have a skillful mindset and own it all. You indeed should be outsourcing and bringing on talent so that you have a full complement of experts. I'm not saying do everything yourself, but you must have an appropriate level of working knowledge. Otherwise, you hinder good decision making, and you eliminate the ability to be a teammate and a good delegator. Instead, you become an abdicator. Delegators work alongside a team member that they've given a big piece of responsibility. Abdicators punt and walk away. I recommend focusing on skills that grow the three forms of capital that you need for business success. Financial capital, your funding; human capital, your skills; social capital, your network. And this strategy grows skill in the right areas while channeling these new skills directly into the growth of your business, multi-purpose. So my score in these areas at launch, financial, I'd give us a 2. Pretty sad, but we had some money in the bank and a salary. Human, I'd say we're a 5. We had good education and good corporate background that I thought was translatable. Social network, I give us a 0. Our corporate network did not translate into entrepreneurship in any way for us. Strong entrepreneurs know that you don't know it all, and they're okay with that. And they go to work learning for a lifetime. With this score, this abysmal score, I realized that it isn't necessary to have what you need at outset, at launch, at scale, at diversification, but it is necessary to grow what you need as you go. So I'd like to close my thoughts today with what I think is my most valuable lesson. The most valuable lesson that entrepreneurship has taught me is that it really is about the passion, about the opportunity to get to develop and exercise your best talents and to get to offer something of value to the world. The cliches are true. It's not about an exit. Entrepreneurs should always be smartly planning for next, and an exit's on the list. But an exit is a byproduct of your success, not a mission. I can say with absolute certainty that I would do this all over again, independent of the successful exit. Thank you.